Filled with reading, and I was looking at my TBR and realized so many of the books that are on there are going to be made into movies this year, and I really want to read them before the movies come out. I put together a list of all of the 2026 book to movie adaptations that I am looking forward to, and there's one coming out really soon that is at the top of my list, so I want to go pick that up at the bookstore and then also see if I can get through a few of the other books this week too. Okay, we are on the way to the bookstore. There's also one book that I am wanting to buy for one of my friends if they have it in stock. I picked a new book for book club this month, but I don't have a physical copy of it. So if they have that, I'm also going to pick it up and do a little browsing because I found a gift card in my purse for the bookstore too. So that is always a good day. I'm getting ready to start my little mini readathon, but first we need to do a haul of the books that I got yesterday. I am really excited about what I found, and I got the last copy of the book that I went for, which was Wuthering Heights. I have never read this, and I feel like I must before I watch the movie. I definitely want to watch the movie right when it comes out. There's been so much hype around it, and if it is an adaptation or a reimagining, and so I want to know what the actual book is like, so I'll have something good to compare it to. And one of my goals this year is also to read more classics. So I'm getting to check both the classic and the book to movie adaptation list off with this one. And then they did have the book that I wanted to get for my friend. This is one of my top 3 most life-changing books of all time that I think everyone should read. The sign next to this book in the bookstore that they have written out for it says, "This is the female Bible," and I could not agree more. It is exploring different myths and fairy tales. The woman who wrote it is a psychoanalyst, and it is just one of those books where you will highlight every single sentence in it, and it will totally shift your perspective of life. At least it did for me. And then I got a fiction book that is a new release that had been on my list. It's called This Book Made Me Think of You. I love bookish books, and this one is about a woman whose husband has passed away. I think it's 6 months later, and he left her a new book for every month for 12 months. And so I think it's her journey of finding connection and hope and meaning in books, dealing with the grief of her husband's death. On the front, it says that it is the feel-good novel of the year. And so I thought just having something that was ultimately hopeful would be really great. And I loved How to Read a Book that I just finished. And I felt like maybe this would have a similar vibe to it. And then the last book I got is On Writing by Stephen King. I have been waiting to buy this book until I saw it in in person at my bookstore because I thought that would be a sign that it was time for me to read it. I have been really interested in writing more and working more on my writing skills, and this one is part memoir, and I also think just as a reader, it's really nice to understand the craft more. So I started this one last night. It was really good so far, and I am excited to read it. The owner of the bookstore checked me out, and she said she has heard amazing things about this one too. So those are the books that I got, and now it is time to read a little bit more. Tyler is out of town for pretty much this whole weekend, so I have a feeling I'm going to be able to get a lot of reading done. And I forgot to go over the list I made of the 2026 book to movie adaptations that I want to read. That's what this video is all about, seeing which ones I can get through. There are a lot of good ones. I'll just have it up on this screen. I think that I've covered most of the ones I'm looking forward to this year. If there's something missing, let me know. So far, the two that I've read are Margot's Got Money Problems and The Love Hypothesis. I read both of those last year. I definitely think they are both worth reading before the TV show and movie comes out, and both of those are going to have a really great cast, and I think they're going to be good adaptations. I am looking forward to both of them so much, but that means that I have a lot more on this list that I need to get through still, and I'm going to try to pick ones for the reading vlog that I think I'll be able to get through in a week. Like, I really want to read East of Eden, but I think that's one that I'm going to need to take my time with. But there's a lot on here that I think would be easy fast reads and pair really well with Wuthering Heights, or ones that have just been on my list forever, like Project Hail Mary. I started that so long ago and then just never finished it. So I'm really excited to read these this year and then hopefully have them read before the movie or show comes out, because I feel like I keep ending up in this situation where I never watch the movie or show because I'm waiting to read the book, and then I take forever to read the book, and then I just never end up watching it. So that is why we are doing things differently this year, and we have made a list and we're working our way through it. thought we could eat dinner together. I also got a cucumber salad. This is all from Roll, which is one of my favorite places to get takeout from. I love getting sushi when Tyler's out of town because he never wants to order it when he's in town. So it is always my treat when he's gone. But so far, I think I've read for probably an hour or so, and I've gotten this far. I was reading the introduction, which was kind of a analysis of the book, which was really helpful. I think that will be really good for me to have read before because I know this book can be a little bit complex, and I've already been a little bit nervous about understanding the language of it since it was written in the 1800s. I know it won't be as quick for me to understand as a contemporary novel, and I really enjoyed some of the psychoanalysis that the reviewer was doing in the intro, so I'm going to look for those themes as I'm reading. There was also a biography on Emily and a letter from Charlotte that was a preface to the 1850 edition because the sisters all died. Charlotte was the last one that was living, and a lot of people thought that one male author had written all of the works by the three sisters. So before her death, Charlotte wrote a letter and let everyone know that it was actually three people. They all published the books under male pen names initially. And you can see here in volume 1 of it how it was published as Ellis Bell, which was the name that Emily used for her book. So after an hour, I am finally ready to start actually reading the book. But while I eat, I think I'm gonna switch, even though this isn't a book to movie adaptation, I'm gonna read Sea of Tranquility while I eat because I think I'm gonna need to pay more attention to Wuthering Heights. I feel like a little bit of a change because that was like a lot of historical context and detail, and my brain needs a little bit of a break. Y'all, I've just realized I'm pretty sure this is not the right order. Like, I think this is crab. I think that's salmon. I hate salmon, so I was like, why is this not tasting normal? I ordered toro shrimp and tuna, and I think I have yellowtail salmon and crab. It's so weird because my order says it's my name, but I think someone put the wrong box in it. I think I'm just going to eat everything except the salmon. I can't eat that salmon. But you know who's going to be really happy about this mix-up is Freddie and Gigi, because Gigi is obsessed with sushi. She loves fish. So I always take the insides out if I have any left over. So she's gonna be having a pretty good night tonight. And I might be having a hungry night. We'll see. We might be having some dessert or a snack post-dinner. And I also don't mind 2 of the 3 things that I have. Unless I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm right because I've never seen one that looks like the salmon, and I showed you that up close and I was like, it just has a different topping. No, I don't think that's true. I think that was just the wrong one. Oh well. This is basically my favorite drink right now that I just made. The Poppy Shirley Temple flavor is unreal. It's so good. And then I do a little bit of Chobani sweet cream, and it's kind of like a dirty soda. It's so good. And when I was reading the beginning of Wuthering Heights earlier in the background, I remembered that in Writing Creativity and Soul, there was a chapter on the Bronte sisters. I wanted to just share one little paragraph from there because I found it fascinating when I read it. I would also love to go to England and visit their home. That's what Sumant Kid did and what she's talking about in this chapter. And when she was doing a tour of the house, the tour guide shared the story of how the sisters came to write and said, even as children, the Bronte sisters dreamed of becoming writers. It was an unlikely profession for 3 young women living in a remote, tiny village in the 19th century. They tried to make do with being governesses and teachers, but they despised the work. At 21, Charlotte boldly wrote to Robert Southey, the poet laureate of England, and told him of her desire to be a writer. He wrote back to her in a now famous letter. Literature cannot be the business of a woman's life, and it ought not to be. The more she is engaged in her proper duties, the less leisure she will have for it. Disheartened, but also incensed, she wrote back, Sir, I do my duties, and as a woman, I have a need to read and write too. And they tried to open a school, and that didn't work, and their father's health was really declining, and their brother was having problems with addiction, and so it became really evident to them that they were going to have to be independent and support themselves. So they gathered at the dining room table and made a impact that they would write, even though the world seemed to be in opposition to that decision. When they began, they published a collection of their poems, and it only sold 2 copies, but they pressed on, deciding that they would each write a novel. In the evenings, Charlotte, Emily, and Anne gathered around the dining room table and wrote by candlelight, pausing to read their work to one another and discuss it as they paced around the table into the late hours. In 1847, their novels Jane Eyre, Wuthering Heights, and Agnes Grey were published under the male pseudonyms of Herr, Ellis, and Acton Bell. The books dared to challenge convention and promoted a woman's right to identity, education, and equality. The Bronte sisters produced 7 novels, some of which are considered among the greatest in the English literature. And that felt like such a powerful reminder of when there's something in your heart to do, to keep pursuing it. The odds were not in their favor. And in the introduction to the book that I was just reading, it was talking about how Wuthering Heights was not even well received when it was first published. Jane Eyre was, but Wuthering Heights was definitely not. And when I was just reading Margaret Atwood's memoir, she was also talking about how a lot of the greatest works of literature that we have now were never appreciated in the time that they were released. So those were just interesting things that I thought I had been reading lately that kind of all tied back to what I read today. And now I think it's time to officially start the book. I am getting really tired, so I think I'm gonna go get ready for bed and possibly read more of this in bed. I am on chapter 3, or just finished that, but now I don't know if this is a good bedtime book because that chapter was very haunting. I didn't realize this leaned more gothic romance. It had a very vivid real dream that is kind of making you go like, was that a real ghost or is it more psychological? But either way, it was intense and I'm just really tired, sorry. My brain stopped working. But I don't know if that's a chapter that I would want to read by myself when Tyler is away. But I also really want to keep reading this book, so I don't know. We'll see. I'm like, does it get more spooky or was that a one-off? I have read a bit more since we last talked. I'd say I'm probably 25% of the way in. I did read some last night. It did not get scarier. We were in present day when I last talked, and then right after that, we're now having a narrator who is having a story told to him by someone else that is flashing back. So everything's starting to make more sense now because in the very first 3 chapters, you're thrown into the present day. And I think it's intentional, but you really can't figure out who's who, how they're related, what this dynamic is, why there is so much tension and everyone's so rude and this house just has bad energy. So the first 3 chapters are kind of building up to like what's going on here. And then with chapter 4, we're finally starting to get the backstory. I think it's gotten really good. If you've tried reading this and you gave up very early, I would say try again and maybe do some reviews or read some chapter summaries of what's going on at the end of the first 3 chapters because it got a lot better from there. And I also ended up tabbing the genealogical table here because I was getting everyone really confused. There's a lot of characters. It's not a fantasy novel by any means, but the beginning of it and the confusion I always have when I start a fantasy novel and I'm trying to figure out how the world is built is kind of how I felt being in this house and trying to decipher who everyone was to each other. The writing style has also not been as hard to understand as I thought it would be, so that has been a pleasant surprise. I was thinking this afternoon I could do a little cooking, there are these protein blueberry muffins that Tyler has been begging me to make for the last few months. So I thought it would be fun to have those ready when he got home, and I could listen to an audiobook while doing it, so I could try another book from the list. I definitely want to read more physical books in this video than just Wuthering Heights, but this would be really difficult to listen to on audio. I think that would just not work for me. I already struggle with audiobooks. Trying to decide if I even like them or not. That's one of my goals for 2026, is to see if I can get into them or if I will just give up on that idea. So I thought we could try the audiobook goal while also having it be one of the 2026 book to movie adaptations. So I'm going to run to the grocery store. I think I have everything except for the blueberries, and then we're going to put on the audiobook and do a little baking. That was nice to switch to a little rom-com for the audiobook, but honestly, this is getting very moody and dramatic, and I'm kind of getting obsessed with it, so I was ready to switch back to this one. I'm gonna try my muffin. It's definitely like a healthy take on a muffin. These are denser, but there was only like 4 ingredients in it, and it was super easy. So now I get to curl up with a book for the rest of the night, which sounds very lovely. I just happened to start on a page that means things have really like taken a turn. Like there were 2 roads that one of the main character could have taken, and based on this page, it is going to go one way. I am showered and in bed by 10 p.m. on a Saturday, and that is exactly how I like it. I did some more reading of this, and I tabbed something because I don't know why it didn't click in my mind that this quote comes from this book, but the "whatever our souls are made of, his and mine are the same" is from here, and it's so funny because I feel like when people are posting that, you are thinking you're doing that because it's so romantic, but in the terms of this book, I would venture to say it is not a type of romance I would want. It's definitely more of like a toxic, all-consuming one. Like she goes on to say, "Nellie, I am Heathcliff." That's crazy. I don't think a therapist would be encouraging this type of dynamic, but I think one of the big themes in here is generational trauma and how these two were kind of like bonded together over trauma that happened when they were young, and then how this Wuthering Heights house just has a lot of repeating trauma attached to it, I think. I don't know, and I'm not done, but that seems to be a theme. Class is definitely another really big theme in here. It's not a romance in the type of way that you might be familiar with a romance in today's sense. I'm curious if this is categorized as romance. I guess maybe the gothic romance, but we'll see how it goes. I feel like I'm at a point where you can kind of like feel like something bad is going to happen, but you just don't know what yet. And something else I'm just loving about this is how the plot is so character driven and the characters have a lot of depth and are really intense. Most of them are pretty unlikable, which sometimes makes me not like the book, but in this case it's not. It's just making me want to keep reading more. I did not think that I would be wanting to like binge read a classic, but it's really, really good. But now I'm gonna get back to reading my book. I want to see how far I can get before Tyler comes home because it's feeling addictive. I am about 50% of the way through Wuthering Heights now. It is getting so, so good. I will do a little update on my thoughts, but first I feel like I am going to fall asleep and I need to spend this afternoon reading to make sure I stay on track with the books that I want to finish this week. So we're gonna go grab a coffee. Coffee is acquired. I have dinner in the slow cooker, well, the first part of it, and it is time to talk about this book because I have a lot of thoughts, and one of my first thoughts, which I need to talk about the book to movie adaptation, but I want to wait until the end of this book when I'm done with it to fully go into that. But one question that keeps running through my head is, are they going to try to make this movie into an aspirational romance? Like, are we supposed to leave the theater being like, oh my God, they're so in love, that's lovely? Because in this, it is definitely a destructive romance for everyone involved, not one that I would want to be a part of. Fascinating to read about, just very funny to me. This book gets quoted a lot from a positive romantic sense because I don't think it is at all. There's been a sub-character that is kind of more involved with the main character now. And I think through her lens, you're really able to see how manipulative and revengeful and egotistical this man is. So I'm struggling to understand how you would read it and think, yes, I want that. It reminds me of the Taylor Swift song, I Can Fix Him, No Really I Can, and how at the end of that song she goes, oh, maybe I can't. The girlies in this book needed to listen to that song. And I think even if people had ended up with different people who they were supposed to be with, I still don't think that I would be thinking that this main man is great, because that wouldn't fix the wounds that he has. With the other character, he has this all-consuming intense bond, but it's not making him act in a good way. Like the intensity is just intensifying things in a way that is making him behave really terribly. And then I feel like there's an example of this like safe and stable love, but the person not wanting it. So there's a lot going on here. I am loving how it's exploring these different psychological things. And I think it's so funny too, because a lot of modern romances would be doing the spin of I can fix him, and I did, making you think that that is a great romance. Like I feel like sometimes I'll read a book and the book reviews are like, that was so romantic. And I'm like, did we read the same book? I don't think that's necessarily great. I'm really liking this because I feel like it's giving a really like raw and real takeaway of what happens when you try to do these things that you shouldn't be trying to do. The narration style is still really interesting too, because you have the main narrator and he's having the story told to you. So there's different levels of bias that you might be getting while you're reading this. So that's just something I've been keeping in mind while reading. I don't know if I had any other notes. And the other interesting thing I've been thinking about when I'm doing this is the main female character, if she made a choice that really wasn't like authentic to her because she was basing it on class or money, wealth, status, those types of things, if that's kind of causing this like collapse too, and then she's living as two separate people by, you know, thinking I'm like soul bonded to this one person, but I'm with this other person, and how that's really destroying her inside. But I'm still not convinced that things would have been different had she made a different choice. I mean, she wouldn't be living two separate lives, I guess, but I think that she has some enmeshment going on with the other main male character. And I also don't think anything good can come of that. So I don't know. I want to see where it's going next. It is just very captivating. And I have one chapter left before I get to the end of volume 1. And then I'll be on volume 2. I guess this was published as 3 separate volumes. So I don't know if we're going to like end on a cliffhanger or if there'll be a big thing that happens to kick off volume 2. I don't know. We shall see. I'll know in just a few short pages. There was a funny end to that chapter. I'm not going to say what it was because I can't spoil the book, but it has made a different character more interesting than they were before. I also do enjoy reading about these somewhat toxic romances, so I can see why we write the characters in that way. They are very compelling. A very cheeky end to volume 1. We are now on to volume 2. Things have taken a bit of a turn. Volume 2 is off to a start. Okay, volume 2, the first 2 chapters, so much happens. And there is a character who I thought was like boring and meh, and now I'm like, he's such a sweetie. I want him to be protected at all costs. And there was also like this really epic dialogue between the 2 main characters. It's like both tragic and also like this is unhealthy, but so much going on, so many emotions, a lot of drama. I'm still like shocked this was written so long ago because it's so good, and I feel like a lot of the themes it's touching on feel so relevant. But now I'm gonna go back to reading. I just needed to do a short update because I'm sad. But I'm like, how much sadder does this get? I still have quite a ways to go. We shall see. Okay, I just had such a realization. Hold on, let me get it. Okay, this book, as I was reading Wuthering Heights, I was like, you know what? It is toxic and obsessive, just like this book was. And then I thought, oh, I think the main character in this novel's name, the man, was Heath, and this one's Heathcliff. And then he gets with this competitor, like rival's sister named Bella, and the sister in here is Isabella, and in here the female is Katerina, and this one is Catherine. So I was like, this has gotta be like a retelling or a take on it, and it is. And I had no idea when I read this book that it was supposed to be a modern reimagining of Wuthering Heights. I don't know if I think that's fully true, because in this book, you are kind of rooting for the two main characters, and there is an ending that I don't know that I feel like is likely in this book, but I can see mainly the similarities with just like the depth of the obsession. So I don't know, I'll see what parallels I draw now that I have discovered that, but that is so funny. I had no idea. I don't think anywhere in this book it says that it is a reimagining. And I also find it interesting that this book named itself something different. It is called The Favorites. Nowhere on here does it reference Wuthering Heights. I read the whole book and I didn't even know that. And I'm sure I read like synopsis and didn't see that anywhere. But the Wuthering Heights movie remake is also, I think, more of a reimagining. It has quotations around it because it's not an adaptation. I think they're saying it's more of possibly fan fiction, or what the director wanted the novel to be like, or how she first experienced it when she was 18. So anyway, that is just my thoughts. I got really excited that I put those two things together. Sorry, I'm jumping everywhere. The other reason that I was putting this together is because after reading this, I was like, maybe I could have appreciated this book a little bit more, and the intensity and the psychological component of it. I just had a hard time getting through it because so many romance readers were saying how much they loved it. And so when I was viewing it from purely a like more aspirational romance lens, I was like, absolutely not. This is not it. This is like so toxic. But when viewed from a more psychological lens, it's a lot more interesting. Like I've said the word interesting a lot. It is what it is. In this book, the two main characters are also bonded together from a lot of trauma they experienced together as children. And there is a older brother that has addiction problems and is like very abusive towards the male main character. So there definitely are some strong themes that align with Wuthering Heights. I would need to think more to decide if I thought it was a fair reimagining, but there's a lot of artistic choice when you're doing that. So I'm like, who am I to say? It's up to everyone's interpretation. And now I'm going to get back to reading. I'm getting ready to head out to a meeting, but last night the recipe that I used was from this cookbook, Don't Think About Dinner. I have been enjoying buying a new cookbook each month or every other month and then cooking my way through it that month. So this was the first recipe that I had tried from it, the chicken pot pie soup, and it was really good. I'm excited about this because I feel like they're very easy and realistic recipes, so I will keep you updated. I'm going to try a different recipe from the book either tonight or tomorrow night. I'm not sure yet. And then after my meeting, I'm going to go to a coffee coffee shop and continue on the Wuthering Heights journey. So far, volume 2 has definitely been a lot sadder because I think it's starting to focus more on the generational trauma and what's happening to the kids and the cycles that are repeating themselves when the parents' wounds weren't healed. And so I don't know, I feel like there's this anticipatory sense of dread that you have a little bit because the very beginning of the book starts in the present. So you know who's living with whom and who is still alive. And so now you're at the point in the story where even though maybe things seem okay for the time being, you know the direction that they head. But I'm still not sure what the ending is going to be like. I think I have around 100 pages left, so I'm planning on finishing that today and then deciding if I want the next book to be something that is a little bit lighter or the one that I was initially leaning towards. Maybe it will depend on how this ends. I am officially done with Wuthering Heights, and this is one of the most compelling novels I have ever read. I have not stopped thinking about this book, and I feel like that is an overused phrase, but truly, I have not. And I think the thing that has been the most fascinating to me the whole time I've read this is just the misconception that it has of being one of the greatest love stories of all time. That is literally the opposite takeaway that you should have when you finish reading this novel. It is a cautionary tale about what happens when you think that you need someone else to complete you and telling you that you do not want that obsessive love. If you hear someone say, "I will die without you," like run the other way. Emily is showing us what happens when that type of love actually plays out and the aftermath that comes from the toxicity that has. I think that is so interesting that she's done this because so many romance novels today take the form of, I can fix him. I did fix him and now we have a happily ever after. This is doing something totally different, something that I think is very important. And I'm kind of concerned that if you don't read the book and you just go off of movies, you're missing the whole second half of the novel, which is I think the whole point of the novel and the trauma that is inflicted on everyone around them and how Heathcliff is revengeful and manipulative and abusive and how there is one steady, safe love available, but it's not taken, but you do still get to see that play out and see the goodness in that, even though there is a lot of badness in this book. This is a pretty dark novel, honestly. There is animal abuse too, and Heathcliff literally holds children hostage. I don't know why this man would be romanticized. You do not want him. One of my other main takeaways after reading this is just how in awe I am of Emily Bronte. This is really a psychological novel. It is exploring the human psyche, and she wrote this before we had all of the common modern psychological terms that we have today. Like today you would be like, oh, it's a novel about intergenerational trauma. But she wrote that when trauma bonds and attachment theories weren't a thing, and she went fully in depth in exploring them. And if you view the book from that lens, I think it's incredibly fascinating. And the other theme she does explore is class and status and making decisions that aren't true to yourself. I did see that. I think the cautionary love tale seems the strongest to me, but also the decisions we're forced into in society or feel like we're forced into that aren't authentic to us makes sense. For the movie adaptation, my biggest concern is how will it be marketed as a love story, and is it really going to do justice to what I think would be the original message that Emily had had in mind. The other main critique I've seen on the movie adaptation is the casting of Jacob Elordi. I would say Heathcliff's race in the book is ambiguous. There's multiple different ways that he's described. I think it's ambiguous on purpose. He is a very ambiguous character, but I think it is a fair critique that casting a person of color would have been more in line with how the book is described. I know the director said that it is how she experienced the novel herself, and so that's how she pictured someone. I don't know. If I were casting the movie, I would have made a different choice. I also would not have called it a greatest love story of all time. So I think there are a lot of other choices that I would have made when it comes to this novel. I could go on and on about this book. I could probably do like an 1.5 hour long podcast on it. But to keep things moving, I think we need to pick a different book from my 2026 book to movie adaptation. I'm going to start a Substack where I share the media that I am consuming weekly and my notes on it, because I also listened to a really cool podcast on Is Culture Stagnant? And I thought it went really well with this book, because one of the things it was talking about is why do we keep pulling from these historical works of art, and are we really creating like unique pieces of art in today's time, and why is that happening, and what was a creative genius in the 20th century or previous times versus what does that look like in the 21st century. So I'll put the podcast link for that in the description too, because I thought that was fascinating and plays well into the movie adaptation theme. But in my Substack that I'm going to do in the future, I'll include all of this in like my little notes on it, so I don't go over too much in time on my vlogs. And now back to the next book. I am close to the end of the week, so I need to pick something that I can get through a little bit quicker. I'm so happy I took my time with this one. I was expecting to read a lot more books in this one, but Wuthering Heights is definitely one you don't want to rush through. I'm glad I didn't, but we do have time for one more book. And we're going to go with something light and easy to get through as a little palate cleanser after this classic. So we're gonna do People We Meet on Vacation. This movie did come out in January, but I didn't watch it because I hadn't read the book yet. I think this will be a fun juxtaposition to have a very contemporary romance right after reading a classic Gothic romance. I don't know that that's even considered a romance, but I digress. And I've always loved Emily Henry's books. I've loved Book Lovers, Beach Read, and Great Big Beautiful Life by her. I did try reading this when it first came out and wasn't really vibing with the characters, but I want to give it another chance, especially since it's her first novel that has been adapted to film, and I think I'll be able to get through this one in a day. I did start this on audiobook earlier in the week too, so I am a few chapters in, but quickly decided I just don't know if I can get behind the audiobook thing. I think I will be sticking to podcast, so I'm excited to do the real book now. And now it is time to read. I've moved to the couch. I have my afternoon caffeine. Fred is napping behind me, and we are about, I don't know, I think I'm over 50% of the way in. Maybe I'll actually get to watch the movie tonight too, which would be a fun way to wrap this up. This has been really cozy and light so far. There is tension, but it is nothing compared to what I was reading before. I will say I am a bit of a thought daughter, so I do think Wuthering Heights was a little bit more my vibe, but it feels nice to be reading something that is not so heavy. And as always, I'm loving the dialogue and banter between the two characters. Emily Henry is the best at that. I like that it is dual timeline. So we start in the present, and there are two best friends who would take annual summer trips together. They currently aren't speaking, so you immediately have this mystery of what happened on their trip 2 years ago that made them stop speaking. And then the book is flashing between present time and the past vacations that they went on together, leading up to this big trip that was in Croatia that led to a fallout between them. But they are presently on a trip. There's awkwardness and tension between them, and they're not really talking about what happened. And I think the flashbacks to the many different vacations are perfect. It's like you're getting a different mini getaway every chapter that has a flashback. That's been one of my favorite parts. We have a friends to lovers and then an opposites attract type of trope. I don't know if either of those are necessarily my favorite thing, especially the opposites attract, because I feel like you have to go so far into why these people are opposites that it sometimes feels like a little bit cheesy to me, but that is okay. I think it is time to get back to reading. There still hasn't been any romantic development between the characters, and you're definitely getting a lot of missed opportunities or missed connections and wondering like, why don't you just say your feelings to each other? So hopefully we have some movement. It has been a slow burn so far. I do appreciate that this is feeling more like a steady, safe love compared to my last book. There were two things I didn't talk about that I meant to talk about, and also I just read a little email chain in the book and it reminded me of something. Poppy couldn't go on this vacation for her work, so she sent her boss a lengthy email apologizing about it, and her boss emails back and says, "You're not the master of your immune system. I can assure you when your male colleagues have to cancel a trip, they show no indication that they feel they have personally wronged me. Don't encourage people to blame you for something beyond your control." This is really random, but I always get my groceries for pickup at Whole Foods, and one night it was raining, and the same person brings my groceries to my car every week, and so when they brought the groceries to my car, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry it was raining, and they stopped me and they said, "Do you know something I don't? Do you control the weather?" I said, "No." They said, "Then why are you apologizing for it raining? Don't apologize for something you can't control." And that was such a small interaction, but it really stayed with me, and now I have stopped myself so many times for apologizing to people for random things that are truly out of my control. So I loved that that little sentence was in there. But one of the things that I'm really liking about this book is at the very beginning of the novel, they set up Poppy's character in a way where she has a lot of the things that she's been working towards, and she's realizing she's not happy, and she's talking to her friend Rachel. She is saying that purpose matters more than contentment. You had a ton of career goals which gave you a purpose, and one by one you met them, and now you have no purpose. I read an article, and apparently the completion of long-term goals often leads to depression. It's the journey, not the destination. Then she encourages her to find her happiness by going back to the last time she remembers being happy, and that's how Poppy starts to realize that she's always been really happy on these trips that she would take with her friend Alex. And so I really like that this book is touching on that kind of crisis that I feel like so many of us go through when you're in your 20s or early 30s. Like, I've done all of the things that I said I wanted to do, and what next? So I thought that was really relatable. And I don't know if I talked about the difference in the characters enough, but I feel like it's a little bit cliched because we have the very emotionally stable, like play it safe, I always do the right thing, man with the more chaotic, I want to travel, I want to try new things, I dress in bold colors and prints versus I wear the same thing every day. Those are the two like character types that we have going on here. Now I'm going to actually try to finish the book. I just really liked that. That reminded me so much of my Whole Foods interaction. We have a officially finished People We Meet on Vacation. I have cookies in the oven, and Tyler and I are going to watch the movie. Overall, this was my least favorite of the Emily Henry books that I've read. I did still love the banter between the characters. Her writing style is enough to keep me reading. I don't regret reading this. Perfect if you're going on a vacation or you want something really light to read while traveling. I am really excited to see how they do the dual timeline and show all of the different trips that Alex and Poppy have together. I think that will be really fun for a movie. The characters did still have growth and depth and things that they worked through. I thought the relationship felt very believable. It was a good love story. A lot of the trips and a lot of the time Alex and Poppy were confessing their feelings to each other or even just interacting with other characters was really centered around alcohol, which I guess does make sense if you're in your 20s and traveling, but sometimes it felt like that made the book a little... Oh, my cookies are done. Hold on. I thought that it almost lacked a little bit of depth in that sense. In general, I think this kind of confirms that the contemporary romances aren't my favorite genre. They're something I'll pick up once in a while, but I really enjoyed reading Wuthering Heights, where I was pausing and thinking, and there was that psychological aspect and a bit more depth to it. But I also love reading for entertainment purposes, and will definitely still grab Emily Henry books when that is what I'm in the mood for, and I think that they will make for really great rom-com movie adaptations, so I am excited to go start that. It is way past my bedtime, but I finished the movie, and honestly, this is a very rare case of the movie being better than the book. I now feel bad that I had critiques on the book. It translated so well into a movie. There were quite a lot of changes though. The structure and the plot was there, but there were a ton of differences. But the flashbacks to the vacations were so good on film, and some of the things that I felt were really repetitive on the trips were condensed in the movie, so that actually worked a lot better. The actors had such good chemistry that I felt like I liked the relationship more from the movie than I even did in the book. The funny dialogue of the rom-com was still in the movie, so overall that was really good. I highly recommend the movie if you want a classic rom-com. Now it's making me rethink what I said about that genre. I think there are better Emily Henry books you could read though. That did stay true. And that's gonna wrap up this vlog, but this weekend or next weekend, I'm going to go watch Wuthering Heights, so we will stay tuned for my thoughts on that movie. Thank you so much for watching. I will be back next week with part 3 of the organization series.